Good morning, collective. I'm Candace, and welcome back to the channel for another episode of Awakening to Your Manifestation Powers. Today, we have a special guest, Deborah Valrie, creator of the Facebook community and YouTube channel 60 Plus Black Women's Expats. Deborah has agreed to interview to discuss some significant effects that she's experienced as a result of utilizing my book, Emerging from the Rabbit Hole. Can you see it? An Adult's Guide to Clarity, Illuminating the Path of the Divine Feminine. Good morning, Deborah.
Morning.
And thank you for taking the time out to do an interview and review my book.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Can we begin with a brief personal history?
Okay. My name is Deborah Valrie. I am retired expat now living in Ecuador. I'm a mother of 4 and a grandmother to 8. And my profession before retirement was a certified financial planner / stockbroker.
Okay. What made you decide to move forward in creating a Facebook page for 60 plus expats, Black women?
Well, first of all, throughout the latter part of my career, I did a lot of travel and I did international travel, and I loved it. And I love the places I went. I love being exposed to different cultures. And then when I found myself empty nest and kind of getting just settled and not having a purpose, and I looked around and my kids were all grown in their houses and raising their families. And I happened to find come across this lady on YouTube that was a digital nomad or house sitter that sat all over the world. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember how much I enjoyed traveling abroad. I think I like living abroad. And so that's where I started the exploration of, are there Black seniors living abroad, and discovered that there were a lot of us, and there were a lot of people hoping to live abroad in their senior life.
Now, I'm wondering, and maybe others are wondering too, how you feel like this book might accompany you moving abroad. Where's kind of the fit?
Well, moving abroad is a big step. So you don't just go, oh, I think I want to try that. So your book really helped me hone in on who I was, what was my priorities, my core values and priorities, and were they being satisfied where I was then, where I was in terms of my location. I was living in downtown Dallas, and just where I was in my life. Did I feel like I have purpose and moving forward? Was I being fulfilled? So the book helped me hone in on that. And I really saw that one of my core values is discovery, and I love discovery, and I love being exposed to different things. And I wasn't being exposed to different things sitting in my loft in downtown Dallas.
Wow. That being said, what age group do you find that this book kind of speaks to? Or would there be an age group?
I think this book is like a kind of reckoning with yourself, and it can be just about any age group. But I would say those who are about to hit a milestone in their life, like they're going from their 20s, they're 29 and they're going to be 30. And, I remember when I was approaching 30, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm not, a youngster anymore, a young adult, I'm fully grown. And so you have that time of reckoning of how you want to spend. And usually by 30, you're probably thinking about marriage, if not already married. By 30, I was already married and had children. But so at 30, and then at the 40s and 50s. So I think every decade we are faced with looking back and looking forward and kind of identifying what have we accomplished in the past, what do we want to accomplish in the future, and is what we're doing right now moving us toward that. And so your book kind of helps you hone in on again, your core values, are you living those?
Right. So that's pretty encouraging when you think that at every milestone, you may be a different person than you were a decade prior. So it's always nice to kind of check in.
I'm a totally different person. I would say, other than recognizing the person in the mirror at 65, you know, it was really, there's more years behind me than ahead of me. And a lot of us over 60, especially Black women, struggle with, do we still have a voice? Do we still
Yeah.
matter?
Right.
That was
And
huge for me.
I think that's true. You know, this book is a predecessor to two other books I plan to do, which fall in line with my trilogy, Invisible Woman, because I feel like that's where women are. Do we have a voice? You know? Yeah. What are some of the results? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm saying that's so important because that's what gets you out of bed.
It's true. If you feel like you can be heard, at least that the lessons and the wisdom that you've acquired are being utilized, not only by yourself, but perhaps your children or people who are around you. Yeah. What are some of the results that you see from emerging from the rabbit hole that you've had?
I felt more like I had identified where I am. Because sometimes you're not really sure. You're so busy paying bills, emptying storage lockers, connecting with a new community. You get caught up in life, and you're not really living your values. You're just in operation mode. So this kind of pulled me out of operation mode and made me take note of where I am and where do I want to be, and if I'm not where I want to be, what changes do I have to make?
Do you think it was an easy guidebook?
Rabbit hole, realizing rabbit hole, and experiencing new things, and you don't want to pull up the drawbridge and say, oh no, I'm not going to explore, because I think exploration is part of a big part of my life. So yeah, I hope I answered the question.
You did. Did you feel like it was an easy guidebook to comprehend, or do you feel like you would have had needed to have some prior, it's like, what is it, counseling or?
I don't think so. I like the simplicity. It was simple but deep. Okay. Because you based it on, Alice in Wonderland, falling down the rabbit hole. And we realized, okay, we are kind of in a rabbit hole. This is whatever stage of life we're in, we're approaching that stage for the first time. Everything else is behind us. So it's like, how did I get here? In fact, where am I and where am I going?
Wow. Okay. I never thought about that, truthfully. I know when we had discussed this prior, you were saying like, why is it so short? And it is relatively short, but I just feel like, with self-help and all that kind of stuff, sometimes you get these books and they're like this. And so it's just one more thing to add to the thing that you can't complete. So, I mean, something this small, it's really short and you can feel accomplished.
11 pages, I think it is, or
Yeah, I think it's what, 15 pages?
pages. And I'm like, when you first gave it to me, I was so glad to get it. And I'm like, okay. And I'm gonna delve into it. And I was like, the first page was like, whoa, okay, this is not something I'm gonna whip through in 5 minutes. And because the setting and the questions were so thought provoking. But if it was a big book, I can't tell you how many big, thick self-help books that I've never finished.
You and me both. And that's not to say that the information isn't warranted. It's just like, oh, but I've got life to do,
We get to live in life, okay? Because
Right.
we cannot put our lives on pause.
Right.
while we go through a big, thick self-help book. Okay. But this was like my point in the day that I did something for myself. Okay. And I know I wasn't going to be there hours doing it. Sometimes I was there an hour, but that was by choice.
Right. Right. Okay. How do you think this approach is different from other self-empowerment or self-development?
I think your approach is a novel approach. It's new. A lot of the self-help things pull from research and stuff from everywhere and studies and all of that. And this was kind of fresh, but we all know that story. We all know that story. So immediately you have the imagery of being in a rabbit hole and not knowing what was going to pop up and what size you were going to, that was big. How big am I going to be in this setting? How small am I going to feel in this setting? So I didn't get that from other self-help stuff. I just didn't. So I like that novelty approach. I like being surprised by something that everybody knew, everybody could relate to. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that this guidebook is could help you actually change behaviors?
It did.
Yeah.
It did. It did.
Oh, it did. Okay.
It definitely it did for me. I found that I was, and this is just my character. I'm a people pleaser, and I want to say a people pleaser in recovery. Okay. I predict having it all together and my resume of what I've done and accomplished in life looks really good. But inside, there's this person that feels like an imposter. When I read my own resume, I feel like, yeah, I know I did that. I did the hard work, just like picking up and leaving the United States and establishing residency in a foreign country.
Which is huge.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People, it's huge. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't give myself permission to feel good about where I am. I'm always reaching for, but did it win this person's approval? Or did this person, are my kids proud of me? Are my grandkids proud of me? Or the new people I meet feel like I'm worth being in the community a friend with or whatever. So I'm constantly second guessing my value and my place in life. And that doesn't speak to the inner child. That doesn't speak to me loving me. This kind of made me look at what are you doing for you? What's going to fulfill you? Because people are going to come and go. Relationships, as much as important as they are, they're going to be frayed, even especially family relationships. They're not always going to be smooth. And so you need to connect with the person in the mirror. This really helped me connect with the person in the mirror and realize I was not paying enough attention to my core needs.
And I think that's just indicative of a lot of women. You get so busy taking care of others. And like you said, even when you become an empty nester, it's still, you're reaching out to make sure that other people are approving of the life decisions you're making.
Yes. And the closer they are, the more important it is for you to feel like they approve of you. Okay. And that's giving someone way too much power.
It is.
And this book was like, I was like a gentle slap. I want to say a slap because it was like, you've given your power to so many people. And so that's why you feel like you're an imposter, because you're constantly switching roles. You're switching costumes you wear this mask for this person and this mask for this person and this. That's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
And then when you take off all the masks, you don't know who that person is in the mirror.
Right.
And I don't care what kind of acclaim or praise or whatever. When you wash your face and take off all the makeup and look in the mirror, you should be okay with that person. You should know who that person is and why they did what they did that day.
Exactly. So you're not in the rabbit hole. So you do have clarity about the choices you're making, right?
And this is not something you do and put down. In fact, when we finish this interview, I'm going to do it again because I think I want to journal and chart where I am now versus when I first finished it. Did I make the changes that I said I wanted to make to be more comfortable with that person in the mirror?
And it's so encouraging for you to, to say that, because that's what I had in mind when I created it, that people didn't feel so overwhelmed by the book itself that they could continue to do it over and over again. And like you said, it's a timeless story and you can see yourself in that and where you fit, so I really appreciate you taking the time out, to tell people.
Oh yeah. Another thing I liked about it is each page stands, it could be a standalone. So when you go over it, especially if you've gone through it one time, when you go back through it, you don't have to do the whole book. There may be one area that, like the one on appreciation, number 3, navigating the rabbit hole of being appreciative or something like that. That may be one. Or it may be love, forgiveness, and attachment or detachment. Oh my gosh, that's huge. So when I review it, I'll probably start there. And that's what I like. Each stage of the book can be a standalone, and you can go as deep in those questions because on each page at the end, you have the question. And
Right.
So I could take this and just spend a lot of time answering these questions, see how I answer the questions, and are the answers to the questions different from my initial run through the book.
Right. And then like you're saying, those questions aren't exhaustive. Who knows what you might come up with on your own in regard to those topics.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I know you had a surprise question in there that you had created for yourself. So I kind of wanted, I think you had said something.
I covered it in the stuff that we talked about. And that was that the surprise I got, because when you're my age, you feel like you know yourself, you know what you want out of life and all that kind of stuff. This made me realize, no. But I was playing a role of what things I thought I should want, given where I am and what I've done. This is what you should want. And things came up that were surprising, that it's like, I think I want to do this. I want to explore this. And it was like, are you healthy enough? Or you have enough resources? If not, what do you need to do differently? And so I hope you do a follow-up, or I hope this develops into a course where there's other women and that's kind of my surprise question.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe a surprise request is that I think this would really be beneficial to go through in a group setting.
You know what?
I've been in group settings like, I don't know, like when I lost a loved one, I went through grief care where people in the room had experienced the same level of grief, but different different, well, and they were at different stages and stuff like that. But the feedback and the knowledge that I got from that and just connecting with other people, that was really beneficial. And I think this would be an ideal book for a course or a support group or whatever to, and maybe start it like as a book study or whatever. I think that would be great, because then I can get feedback from other people and be held accountable. That's a bit.
Yeah, that's, hello, we both know about that, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's an excellent idea.
okay. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's what I yearned for afterwards. I connected with you afterwards, and we kind of stretched it out. But I would love to connect, have other women going through the process, and each stage we kind of once a week got together and said what we got out of it, or what we were willing to explore, and have that, because a big part of change is a big part of human value is being acknowledged that what you're doing is worthwhile. And that kind of puts down the imposter syndrome when a little bit when somebody else can validate you.
And I think it also feeds into the divine feminine aspect, or the feminine energy of collaboration and cooperation. And we seem to thrive in that kind of environment. Not saying all women, but I'm saying a majority of women tend to find group atmospheres helpful for growth. You're right.
Yeah.
So now you get me on another project. I think so. Yeah.
And especially, you said what group. I think it's especially important for retirees, because we're not going to a corporate setting where we have associates and colleagues and whatever that we're going to interact with every day. And so that whole setting it's gone. You know, we might connect with our church once a week, but, you know, as past COVID, when we couldn't even fellowship with our church, I think we got accustomed to being alone. And that's not good. That's really not good. There's still, I know in my church, there's still a lot of us that will watch it on Facebook or whatever, watch it online, because a lot of the church, and not get around people. And I remember the scripture that says, forsake ye not assembly among other believers that encourage you to good works. We need to be around other people's energy and have that experience of being seen.
That fellowship. Yeah.
Being seen, being valued, having input, receiving input. I think that's a core value that a lot of retirees miss. So I think age group wise, yeah, everybody can relate to it. It's like every decade that you do. But I think when you lose that built-in connection from being employed and having a career, you're really
right. And it's kind of like from school too. Like, you know, when you're leaving high school, you no longer have those friendships. Becoming friends as an adult, it's very difficult. So having a like-minded group setting, I mean, that's invaluable.
I'm glad you brought that up, because high school, I mean, a lot of those people you knew from first grade to 12th grade or whatever, or at each entity you met and bonded with people, you know, even if you moved around or different districts or whatever, you met and bonded with those people for 4 years before you graduated. And then when you graduated, you either became employed, so now you're connected with another group, or you went on to college. And college was big because you're kind of on your own, but you still got some guardrails. Okay, you got to show up for class, people expecting you and whatever. But you meet friends, and you really kind of spread your wings a little bit and making the decisions that are going to outline the rest of your life. So you have that. And then when you graduate from college, you're into that career, or you're going to further educate. But again, you're the natural progression is you're going to be with a group, whether it's a
Yes.
corporate group or it's going to be extended learning group or whatever. And then throughout your career, retirement is the only time you progress and there's no group. There's no group to catch you.
Right, and you can't really infringe on your family or your kids because they have their own families or
Yeah. And they're in their group. So and you're not a part of that group.
It's like, hey, I got my group, right?
Because I get this vision of, oh, once I'm retired, I get to spend all this time with all my kids and everything. And they're like, yeah, come on over. We're going to work. Or come on over. We're going to PTL. Come on over. We're going to interact with our group. And, and that's
right.
good. They valued the time and I valued the time, but there's no group.
Well, you've got me motivated. I'm not quite sure what where to start as far as what platform I would put it on or whatever, but it's pretty much broken down, so it should be fairly easy. And I would like to bring that forward. Yeah. And I appreciate you taking out the time to do this interview and giving me the feedback, because I want to make sure that I'm putting out stuff with value that actually is helping people and it's not an ego trip or anything like that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
you. Not having imposter syndrome, right?
Oh, yeah. So that's another reason why for me to go back through it and realize, okay, you're spending more time on what other people think and less time on fulfilling your, that inner child. And because I don't care how old you get, you're always going to have an inner child.
Exactly.
You may grow up in stages, but she's always going to be there. She's always going to have needs. And it's up to you to, somebody said, parent your inner child. That's a big responsibility. When you parented everybody else, now you're parenting your inner child. And you need help. And this is a good
It's
start.
true. And I think that's what this book made me do. Yeah, it made me touch on that. It made me think back about being a kid and, things that my needs that might not have been met,
Yeah.
But that, it is what it is. Now you're the adult who can do that. So, yeah.
And we realize it kind of gives a caregivers, I won't say a pass, but we can kind of understand how they might not have been aware that they were meeting some of our needs or whatever, because when we start to do that, we realize that's a big job. That's a big job. Especially if they had several, if you're not an only child, they were trying to meet those needs of all of those kids. And sometimes it was just putting you in a safe environment, and feeding you.
That's it.
Feeding, clothing,
just doing what they could do. Right.
And safety. They weren't in our generation, my generation, I'm older than you. They weren't into touchy-feely. How are you feeling today? What's your emotions? My mother never asked me to meet my emotional needs.
Right. I mean, it sounds crazy now. Look.
Did I bathe? Was I ready for school the next day? Did I do my chores? So she was teaching me responsibility and how to be, nourish my body and stuff like that. So she took all the basic stuff, but that emotional intelligence, nah.
Look, I mean, it is what it is, right? And you just have to forgive and move forward, because now you're hoping your kids won't, you know what I'm saying? Oh, I hope they'll forgive me for being human and being flawed. And yeah.
And that helped me because, then you have the blame thing. Oh, my kid. And they love to tell you, well, you didn't do that. They'll remind you of what you did.
Oh, yeah, I'm waiting on it. I got one in the wings waiting to hear from him, what he's going to tell me about what I didn't do.
They will tell you, well, why you do it that way? Well, you did it that way, or you did it that way, and I'm not doing it that way, whatever. But yeah. So yeah, this is a big
big little book.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you, like I said, coming forward and taking the time out to do the interview with me. And hopefully I'll have an opportunity to speak with you about my course. So.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to be pushing you only because I have a need.
Okay, well, we'll talk later, and I appreciate everybody who tuned in and took the time out to listen to our interview, and hopefully go out to Amazon and find the book, Emerging from the Rabbit Hole, An Adult's Guide to Clarity.
The book. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.